Support for Celebrity Memoir Book Club comes from Expedia. Everyone should have somewhere to look forward to, and that is why Expedia, Hotels.com, and Vrbo have come up with Unpack 25, a list of all of the best travel destinations for 2025, whether you are looking for somewhere off the beaten path, somewhere where you can find just like the most incredible items to source to bring back with you. If you are looking for a one-click trip, your favorite influencers, favorite destination, they have put together incredible itineraries for you to just set it and forget it and go on the perfect trip. Or if you want to do a nice little getaway and experience JOMO, the joy of missing out.
No matter what kind of traveler you are, you can find inspiration with Unpack 25. Explore more travel trends and find your somewhere to look forward to with Expedia.com/Unpack25. I'm Claire Parker.
And I'm Ashley Hamilton. And this is Celebrity Memoir Book Club, the podcast where we open up a celebrity memoir, we take a look at what's inside, and then we share it with you.
Yeah,
get it?
That's so good. Can I say, spoiler alert, this week is Cher, part 1, who I just have to take a moment to note that her bio in this book is Cher. Just Cher is a global icon, and that's her entire biography in this book. I used to think Cher was the craziest name in the world, and then when I learned that it's just short for Cheryl, I went, there's beauty everywhere for those who can think of a nickname. I went from being like, what a bizarre...
I feel like I had that thought too. I was like, who could even come up with that?
And then I was like, oh, just, the nickname for Cheryl.
I was like, you've got Cher, you've got Madonna, you've got these like legends in naming.
Prince. I'm like, where are they coming up with this stuff? Cheryl feels like a gimme, especially for like that day and age. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ashley, do you have any announcements you'd like to talk to the team about?
Oh my God.
I just learned the word chat.
Chat. We've got announcements. Okay. First off, fresh merch.
We're wearing it right now if you're watching on video or looking at a clip.
We're wearing it. It is the Ugliest Girl in the World Attack design, reissued in hoodie and sweatpants. It is soft. It is lovely. It is a experience that you should experience.
Ashley went through hundreds of different sweatshirt types to find one that you could perfectly like zip up and feel very like the void. Do you know what I mean? She designed it specifically to be like, when you're the ugliest girl in the world, how do you just like hide from everything? They're the perfect, just like lounge in a corner and not leave your house outfit.
Yeah, they're very soft, but not oppressively thick in a way that I think you can like move and groove with the attack of ugliness that will consume us all each winter.
I also think they're going to be perfect for summer, like a summer eve.
A summer eve would be nice.
Ugh, summer's eve. Am I light, ladies?
I want to give you a second to get closer to what you were trying to say.
No, I think I nailed it. I think we're all on the same page.
Okay.
And I think I was light, ladies.
Do you know what else we have coming up? We are going to be hosting another live digital show December 17th. There are tickets in bio, in the show notes, everywhere tickets can be clicked, where we will be donating all of the proceeds to
the Brooklyn Free Clinic.
Yes.
If you think that people should be able to go to the doctor regardless of how much money they can afford to go to the doctor with, then boy, do I have the charity for you.
Yeah, so we're very excited to be able to make a donation to the Brooklyn Free Clinic, and we're going to do a CMBC holiday party. We're going to decorate cookies. We're going to make cocktails. I found an Emily in Paris cocktail book, so we will be making Emily in Paris cocktails and celebrating with holiday cheer.
We'll be doing that thing we do where we'll have one sip of an alcoholic beverage and then let you guys ask us anything and give you career-ending honesty.
And Claire, if you were to write a celebrity memoir, what would you title last week's chapter?
An exercise in what's the opposite of scarcity? Maximicity?
Yeah, maximizing.
Because I really feel me and Ashley both suffer from a scarcity mindset in terms of all things professional. We really believe that, like, if we were to take Christmas off, you guys would all abandon us. That's a problem we've been working with. And I feel as we each step forward in your career, something is offered to you and you're so excited and you're like, I had to drop everything and make it work. I always think about that scene in that movie Frances Ha when she has a meeting with, I think, like her dance studio teacher or something, and she like leaves Paris early to take the meeting, and the teacher's like, why did you do that? We could have moved it to tomorrow. This is like not an important meeting. And I think that's so emblematic of specifically your 20s when everything feels life or death and nobody else gives a shit.
Yeah, you always think that if you don't go to the party, there'll never be another party. But guess what?
Not to me, even the party. I feel to me like professional opportunities. This idea that any one casual coffee is going to like change your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the person whose nephew you met, you're like, oh my God, that could be the thing that gets me the job that changes everything. Anyway, this week, things have come and things have gone. We had so many offers that I was so stoked on that I really was like, life is changing for Clashly. And then, oh boy, like sand through my fingers, they just disappear. But can I say, I feel so calm about it. And I do. I just said, it's okay. I didn't have them last week either. And I was happy last week. So easy come, easy go. Live, laugh, love. I'm laughing to the bank. And we did go to such a fun party at Spotify. Spotify just launched their Spotify for Creators platform, and we got to go out and like celebrate with them.
And it's not something we would have been invited to before. So even though things they come, things they go, things they come.
I said, listen, whatevs, skis. I had a couple free drinks and I'm feeling good. I'm sitting in my new merch. I'm happy as a clam. I'm chilling. What about you, Ash?
Okay, I feel that I need to refine my center in terms of scarcity mindset and unscarcity mindset because, okay, so we went to a party in Hollywood.
If you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? We talked about it a lot in the Patreon.
Okay, so with our friends, we were the drunkest people there for sure. And then I just remembered just now how Al Pacino was like, everyone leaves parties early because you don't want to act like a fool. And then I remembered how I ended the party laying on the ground in the photo booth. And I can't decide.
Can I say something
fun
though?
Or not?
You know what's so fun about us? We are the least famous people anywhere we go in LA. Literally, we were the only people there nameless. If you're going to be nameless, why not lie on the ground? Oh, what are they going to do? Tell someone about it? They can't. They don't know who you are. We were the least important, most forgettable people. And I think that's like a shield of invisibility that we use the most of.
That's so true. We were the only ones dancing. We were the only ones using the sleeping photo booth.
Al Pacino would love us, though. And I really believe that.
That's so true.
And that's my new barrier of entry to all questions about myself.
And do you know who would have danced if she was there?
Who?
Cher.
Do we know that?
This whole book, she's talking about how she loves to rip up a dance floor.
But she's also talking about her crippling stage fright. So.
It's not a stage, it's a floor.
It's the ground. Okay, should we get into this week's episode?
I would love to.
Cher, the Memoir, Part 1.
It really is Part 1 in that this is the first chunk of her life and then it just ends.
Something fun is I don't know a ton about Cher. I didn't know a lot going in. Mostly what I knew is that song, Do You Believe in Life After Love? And it's not even in this book yet. And I could not begin to tell you when it'll pop up.
I'll say I was very familiar with I Got You, Babe.
Okay. I know the line, I got you, babe. Do you know what comes next?
Put your something hand in mine. Do.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
Do. I got mine.
But anyway, it was fun because it ends in like 1980. And I really am like, and then what, Cher? I don't know what part 2 will be about. And I don't even know if there will be a part 3.
Oh, this is the wicked of celebrity memoirs. So this book opens with her seeing Elvis in concert. Elvis, who you might know of from the Lisa Marie Presley, Riley Keough, and Priscilla Presley books, or the Linda Thompson book. He was a famous singer. And she saw him in concert when she was very young and just ogled and was mind boggled and said, I've got to be up on that stage someday.
I mean, I guess when you have unlimited parts to tell your tale, you can start it with like the dawn of time and the way that a little amoeba became sprouted legs. You know what I mean? Then that thing would grow on to become a monkey, and that monkey would grow on to become Bob's uncle or whatever. And that's kind of how this book starts.
I will say though, okay, so she tells like every story in this book, but every story is a crazy story.
I feel very similar with like trauma, addiction. There are these cycles of things that happen where like every story stands alone as like the craziest story you've ever heard. But the problem is when you start like stringing them all together, you get very lost in the sauce. It turns out cycles of abuse and generational trauma, it goes back for like it wasn't better during the Depression. Who would have guessed? It turns out the Victorian children didn't have it any better than your mom did. And so she starts with like her great-great-grandmother. And I think if you really want to know the true origins of Cher ancestrally, by all means, pick up the book, Part 1.
There's a lot of detail. And I think that if you are interested in the lore of Cher at all, I like do not steer you away from this book in the way that I was like, only read Barbara Streisand if you're like a numero uno stan.
No, I mean, these are interesting people's stories.
Yes.
It's just for this podcast,
We can't tell everything.
just to pull back the curtain a little bit, for this podcast, we're reading it and there's always a story here, a story there, everyone has a run-in with JFK if they're old enough. Everyone's like fucked Warren Beatty if they're old enough.
Or not old enough.
I meant alive.
Oh.
If you were born pre-90, I think you got to fuck him. That was just like an American tradition. But, we're looking at the narratives. It's hard to be like, okay, when people are having babies at 13 and everybody's baby daddy ran away and every single person was an alcoholic, abusive, drunk, you're kind of like getting it muddled in the old brain. So what I need you guys to know is imagine we're 3 generations deep of babies having babies. Turns out no 14-year-old dad has ever been sober or kind.
Yeah.
They're all dirt broke. Cher's mother, Linda's earliest memory is being dragged in a burlap sack and nursed because her parents were like picking cotton on a field during the Great Depression.
Yeah. So Linda met Roy when she was approximately 12 and he was approximately 16. She got pregnant at 13 and they ran away together and got married.
No, that was Linda's mother was 13. Oh my God.
You're mixing Linda up with Jackie Jean.
Okay, this is why it's so confusing because the other thing is when everybody's 15 when they have a baby, they're all alive forever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like your grandma shouldn't be 30 years older than you because I get confused.
Yes. I agree. Okay, so Linda and Roy met. He was like working at a bakery and she was working somewhere in town, like stealing from the bakery or something. And they met. She got pregnant at 13 and gave birth to Jackie Jean. So Jackie Jean, who is Cher's mom, she spent most of her life kind of ping-ponging back and forth between Linda and Roy, her mother and her father. They broke up pretty young. Roy just kind of abandoned them.
But then came back for her. And like, even though he was an alcoholic and very abusive, he like loved her. Whereas her mother, Linda, was very cold.
Yes. And so the other question that I have in this book, because it happens several times and the internet was not even invented by the end of this book, right? Every time someone flees town and then they go to like find them, how do they do it?
I don't know because people were like fleeing state lines.
That's what I mean. Like,
no, I know. I'm clarifying for them that they were like leaving Arkansas and going to California, and then they would track their asses down and drag them home.
Like when someone goes from Scranton to Fresno, and you don't even know, like you just get abandoned in Scranton, right? And then like later you find them in Fresno. How did you find them there? Can I say I can't find you when we like are meeting at the studio, but I
forgot my keys today and my phone was dead. It died on the bus. And I just thought, what if we have to cancel? You know what my backup plan was going to be? I was like, maybe I just go back home. I don't know your phone number. I was going to be like, I'm going to have to log into somebody else's Instagram and DM Ashley and hope it gets out of her requested box.
The day that you lost your phone, that it got stolen, I thought I'd never see you again.
Yeah, I thought that about myself. Anyway, it's very back and forth. Jackie Jean, which is the birth name of Cher's mother, from the time she was a little baby, just had a light, a quality, and a voice. She had this beautiful voice. She was a beautiful girl. She grows up to be a gorgeous woman. I have to say,
I mean,
you know how sometimes you see folks of people that were like, quote unquote, pretty back in the day, and you're like, okay, I guess eyebrows were very different.
Yeah, and you're like, I think the eye has adjusted in a way that
can't go back. But I mean, she's just a stunner in a way that if I could just get a look at her, that would tide me over, you know?
Yeah, so she is 5 and living with her dad, and he's having her sing for money. They would go into a bar and she would stand on the bar and sing and make
like 19 cents that he would use all for alcohol and give her an extra penny to go get candy or something with it.
Yeah.
And that's like all the money they had.
Yeah.
I'm sure Linda was also beautiful. She would go get another husband, come back, fight with Roy. She got pregnant again by Roy. Her ex-husband found out, was really mad. You know, things were just always happening. At times, Roy would take the children and they'd all be sleeping on the floor. Sometimes they'd be sleeping in the bakery. One of her mother's most traumatic memories, Jackie Jean, is waking up, smelling gas, and then seeing her father leave and realizing later that her father had tried to murder her and her brother to get vengeance on the mom. And that father was like the person she loved most. Eventually, he decides to take Jackie Jean out to LA and see if they can make it as stars. And even though she's constantly winning beauty contests and like talent contests with her voice and getting scholarships to acting schools, they're just always too broke to make it work. They can't afford the tap shoes, or they can't afford to like keep living in LA. They can't afford to eat. She has to go back to like busking on the street for them. So they're always getting pulled back to wherever they're from. Oklahoma. To me, that's all. I couldn't tell those states apart, those middle ones.
No, I know. They all kind of blend together.
Ohio, Oklahoma, Arkansas. If it starts with a vowel, I couldn't point to it on a map, to be frank.
Okay. Well, that's pretty insulting for my people.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell vowels apart.
It's all one letter. So then Jackie Jean in her teen years is kind of just bopping around California. She was working as a waitress and a singer. And then she meets a guy named Johnny Sarkeesian. Whatever.
The spoiled youngest son of a large Armenian family, Johnny was a year older than mom, but wore the kind of flashy clothes and jewelry that gave him an air of greater maturity. He was too short for her taste and she wasn't interested, but the man could move and she got suckered in.
So then one day he's like, let's just go to Reno and get married. And she was like, what the fuck? So she had watched a lot of people in her family get sort of done in by unwanted pregnancy. So she had planned to never have sex until she was married. So now he's trying to marry her. They end up getting married and immediately she's like, I have to get it annulled. And he is like, give me a chance to be your husband.
He says, give me 3 months and then you can decide to end it. Of course, what happens in those 3 months? She gets pregnant. Beneath his polished veneer, my father would become a heroin addict with a penchant for larceny and a shaky relationship to employment.
So when Linda finds out that Jackie Jean is pregnant, she takes her to get an illegal abortion. And Jackie Jean just leaps off the table and is like, never mind, I can't.
Then Cher is born Monday, May 20th in 1946. She was named actually Sherry Lynn after Cheryl and her grandmother Linda. I believe Sherry Lynn was my name until the day years later when I decided to legally change my name to simply Cher. When I applied for the birth certificate, I was shocked to find out that I was officially registered as Cheryl. And I asked my mother, do you even know my real name, Mom? Let me look at that, she cried, snatching the document. Presented with the evidence, she shrugged. I was only a teenager and I was in a lot of pain. Give me a break.
They end up moving a lot.
Yeah.
So they are moving, I would say, throughout Cher's life. At one point, according to Cher's younger sister, the younger sister went to 25 schools.
And I think that sister had a smidge more stability than even Cher.
Yeah.
So at one point they moved down, I want to say near the border, near the Mexico border.
Yes. And the dad is running a refrigerator company.
6 months after my birth, Johnny came home one night and told her that he'd lost his father's trucking business in a card game. Everything was gone. My mother couldn't believe what she was hearing. So they up and take a bus all the way to New York.
A 50-hour bus ride.
Cher is just a baby, crying the whole time. I didn't do well as the mother, my mom admitted. I was hysterical all the time because of the turmoil I was in. So they go to live with Johnny's sister Liz in New York. Of course, she's like, believe it or not, a New York apartment is not really that big. So they don't know what to do. They end up moving to Pennsylvania for a while. I mean, they're just always moving.
In New York, she was doing pretty well because she got a job as a cigarette girl at the Copacabana.
I'm sure you've heard of it.
At the Copacabana. And then the dad was like, never mind, there's work opportunities in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So they moved to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where she's making a lot less money.
He's going to sell paper with his friend Jim.
The sexiest man in Pennsylvania.
Some would say the world. I don't know why I said the world like that. I'm really struggling with words today.
No, it's hard. We're very cozy right now.
I've been lulled into a stupor of my own making.
Anyway, so then in Pennsylvania, things are not working out for him. She is working as a waitress and he's like, I'm going to go back to New York to borrow money from his sister. And the mom is like, well, I'm working as a waitress all night. What about the baby?
She was working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a diner. So then he goes, it's only for 2 weeks. How about you take the baby to a nunnery and leave her there? So the mom has to leave Cher at a nunnery and Cher's
that you pay for, by the way.
Yeah, you pay for the nunnery.
Baby boarding school.
And then Jackie Jean finds out she's pregnant again. Meanwhile, this man has not come back. It's been weeks.
Later, Cher finds out she might have been there for months. And Jackie Jean's barely allowed to visit the baby. She would go in and just say, can I hold her? And they say, no, you're unfit because they thought she was a single mom because the dad had just scrammed, which you're still allowed to hold your baby.
And she was, I guess, in the process of becoming a single mom.
Maybe they thought she was an unwed mother.
I think that she was an unwed mother.
But still, a mother nonetheless.
So then she goes to have a back alley abortion and almost dies.
And they're like, yeah, I don't know. If you had died, we'd have dumped your body. I'm not going to jail. And it's so scary. My deadbeat father never returned or even sent word. He simply vanished. In time, she convinced herself that the only reason she was destined to meet him in the first place was that I could exist. That was all he was good for. So luckily she is so beautiful that everywhere she goes, there's like the richest man in town is looking out for her. And so she finds this richest man in town and she says, you gotta help me get my baby back. And he goes, I can't take on the Catholic Church, but I'll try.
So then he goes and he screams at a nun and they get Cher back.
For the rest of her life, her mom fucking hates nuns, and rightfully so.
Can I say, if a nun tried to steal your baby?
Cher wrote the controversial song in 1994, Sisters of Mercy, but it was for her mother. She said, I hope I took some of the pain away from her because I know that she felt forever this pain of having lost her baby for so long.
Yeah. And it was this hard thing where it was like, what could she have done?
She goes, one thing is for certain, my childhood was never normal, but it was only once I was older that I fully understood why I've always hated being left. So they moved back to LA. And she says she later finds out when she's an adult that her neighbors, like Mickey and Mackie and Edith, who were her grandma's friends that babysat her from time to time, they did not babysit her. It turns out she had lived with them for like maybe a year.
Yeah, there is a period of time that is just unaccounted for where Jackie Jean had found a rich boyfriend who just had no interest in being a father. So she would kind of run off with this guy, and Cher's like, knowing my grandma Linda, of course she was like, go with the rich man, leave your kids behind.
Yeah, this man was named Ernest Prim, and her mom always said, you know, it's just as easy to fall in love with a rich man as a poor man. That's your duty in this world. The only thing that will protect you is finding a rich man. To this day, I feel sorry for my grandmother and the life she had, and I'm even more sorry that she instilled so much toxic stuff in my mom, who was so needy of her love and approval.
So then the mom ends up walking away from Ernie because he makes it very clear that he just doesn't want the kids to come with.
And she's been enrolled now in a dramatic arts program, and she falls in love with a hot little actor. I mean, it's just so crazy because when I think mom, I think like adult, but now I'm like, oh, this woman was 21 and like a stunner. If I was 21 and hot, I'd have lots of boyfriends.
Yeah. Support for Celebrity Memoir Book Club comes from Expedia. If you want to genuinely get to know someone on a whole new level, you've got to go on a trip with them. Claire, if you were to go on a trip with one of our celebrity memoirists, who would you go with and where?
Okay, I want to go with Padma Lakshmi to Palm Springs.
Why?
First of all, I think she knows how to find the best food anywhere she's ever gone in her life. Second of all, I recently saw an interview where she said she loves to dance. I want to go dancing with Padma Lakshmi, and then I want to have incredible late night eats. And then I want to fall asleep drunk and wake up to the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I think we would have a lot of fun in Palm Springs.
I would go to this cottage in the Scottish Highlands with Dolly Alderton from the Unpack 25 list, because one time I was listening to her old podcast where she said that she got a cottage like on the outskirts of Ireland to finish writing one of her books. And I've always wanted to get a cottage somewhere in the UK to write something because I'm trying to like get something done this year.
Well, I hope you write me a postcard.
I think I will.
Me and Padma won't read it. We're too busy dancing.
Your ideal vacation might not look like the next person's, but with Unpack 25, Hotels.com, Expedia, and Vrbo have put together lists of the best destinations for 2025. Whether you are looking for an off-the-beaten-path getaway to experience JOMO, the joy of missing out, or just an under-the-radar location that everyone on Instagram hasn't quite traveled to yet. See all the new travel trends and find yours somewhere to look forward to at expedia.com/unpack25. So then Chris, the hot actor, and her break up, and she meets a guy named John Southall, who ends up being the third husband, and they're like properly in love. They like really do love each other, and he's really great with Cher.
This is the man that she calls father for the rest of her life, and the only man
that she feels like tried to be a dad.
Yeah, this is like her image of what a father is. He was a nice actor from Texas, and I'll tell you, we'll put up photos on Instagram of the two of them together. Good Lord, were they a beautiful couple. You can't believe people like that were just walking around. They didn't even have filler back then. That was just the God's work. The Lord's filler.
I mean, they moved, I think, every 2 weeks. I don't think leases existed back in the day. It is crazy. She'd be like, when things were good, we would live down in like this area, Crescent Heights Boulevard, near the Hollywood Hills. When things were bad, we would move deeper into the valley or back with Mama and Pa, which were John's parents. I mean, they moved so often.
Yeah.
Like at one point, she's like, things were really steady. I stayed at this school for a semester. So even though John is the good dad, he's also an alcoholic and like did get violent.
She said that more than once, he like wouldn't kill their mother because she'd say, well, who will raise Cher? You'll be in jail and I'll be dead. And that would like walk him off a cliff. And that in Cher's mind made him the best father figure because at least he loved her enough to not kill her mother.
So then Cher sees the movie Dumbo and is like obsessed with it. She wants to be Dumbo. And her mom is like, what the fuck are you talking about?
She's like, yeah, you can't be a cartoon elephant. That doesn't even make sense.
But Dumbo comes up like kind of a lot in this book. Like something good will happen to her and she'll be like, I felt like Dumbo.
It reminds me of that scene in Step Brothers when he was like, I wanted to be a dinosaur. And they're like, what? You're just not a dinosaur, Dad.
I felt like Dumbo that day.
So her mom is trying to get work as an actor. They both are. And sometimes they're getting roles and sometimes they're not. She got some walk-on roles here, some walk-on roles there. The problem is she wouldn't sleep with anybody for a role and that really held her back. And the other problem is she was too beautiful to be an extra. You didn't want the most beautiful girl in scene being next to the star. But God, she was gorgeous.
Oh, she was very beautiful.
Even though I hated all the arguments and the times when we were broke, as soon as I was able to express myself on the subject, I begged my mother, please, let's never be like those other people. I'd kill myself if we had a normal life. God, I was so dramatic.
I dreamt of being an actress like those in the movies. So her and her mom loved to like curl up and watch movies together. Her mom ends up getting an amazing role. Like it's going to be her big break. She's going to star in The Asphalt Jungle.
And then the next week, it turns out it was taken away from her.
And given to Marilyn Monroe. Ever heard of her?
No.
Oh, her mom also changed her name to Georgia Pelham because she thinks it sounds more like, has a better dramatic flair. So moving forward, Jackie Jean and Georgia are the same person.
We'll call her Georgia now. They loved watching movies together. And then she gets pregnant. Not realizing the impact of her pregnancy on our family income, I was deliriously happy that a real baby would be left for us under a magical leaf in the cabbage patch. So John, Southall, and now known as Georgia Pelham have a little baby. Her name is Georgianne, named after Pa George, and forever known as G.
She felt a little left out once G was born because she thought it'd be like really fun to have a little sister. And then all of a sudden she was like, wait, no, now everyone's just looking at the little sister and not me. We were all really happy in the first year of Georgianne's life, but daddy's drinking was still a problem.
Her mom loses her agent. Finding work without an agent was hard at the best of times. So the minute mom got home after a long day on set, she'd grab a Dr. Pepper and then she'd hit the phone. It was horrible to watch and listen as she spent hours calling around to all the casting directors trying to pick up work as an extra. We had dial phones then, and she'd be spinning it over and over again for hours.
She also has to pick up and leave John at this point because his drinking is so bad. The problem was each time their relationship broke down, she found it harder and harder to make ends meet.
She'd vowed to be a better mom than Linda, but she'd be the first to admit she often bungled it. And although mom complained about Linda almost every single day, such was the friction between them. Every now and again, they'd be thick as thieves, which was confusing.
So then when she was 9, her mom officially left her dad and they moved to the San Fernando Valley. One night they're watching TV and the mom's new boyfriend, Bill, is there. And John comes in and grabs a knife and like threatens to murder all of them.
And her mom like loses a toenail climbing over the fence to escape. And they have to run to the neighbors and say, please help us. My husband's going to kill us.
And this was the best man in her life, I think, for the next 10 years and the whole time before that.
Because he and mom split up so often, I thought their latest split was another one of those times and fully expected daddy to walk back into our lives any day. When that didn't happen and mom seemed to hope that his absence would go unnoticed, I understood for the first time that love hurts. Even though I knew we were probably better off without him, I loved John Southall more than he could ever know. I was sad to my bones, but I couldn't tell my mother how much I missed him because I knew that would only upset her more. So he was in their life for a total of 4 years.
Wow.
And that's like the most stability I think she ever had.
She just has this like zen chaos about her. She tells this story that I think is an important one because it's very telling of like who she is and how she processes things as a person. At one point she's with her friend and they see a horse like in a field and they just decide to get on it and ride this horse around. And riding this horse around, they see a stopped like boxcar train and they just hop on the train and they end up going 40 miles north before they just get off the train and go find a railroad worker who's able to contact their parents on a payphone. And she's just kind of like chilling. It was only later when I was lying in bed grounded that the reality of what we'd done began to sink in. I had borrowed a horse and jumped on a train, and it was worth it. She's always trying to find freedom and find herself in that freedom, but also it's just like very calm. Like in this book, whenever she stands up for herself or snaps or anything, it doesn't seem like she ever yells. or like even does anything in a drastic way. Like she does drastic things in a shockingly calm way.
It was when we were living at Beeman that I first began to dream up little plays to put on for my mom and Jake, marking out a makeshift stage in our living room floor. Jake was her mom's best friend. I loved to entertain them. She says that she was always very shy, but she had this love of expression. She, wanted to be Dumbo out there.
Yeah. So her dad, or John, or whoever that guy is, moved to Texas and got a new wife. And she missed him a lot and then realized it was better to just not think about him anymore. I might have only been a kid, but I'd already learned how to compartmentalize sadness. So then she starts getting into boys. She just kind of always has a boyfriend or old weird boys trying to get her.
Once her mom and John broke up, there was even more bouncing around, and sometimes her mom couldn't even afford to keep the two kids. And so sometimes they would just live with her grandparents, actually John's parents. And even though it was much more comfortable there and they always had a meal on the table and they lived a much more stable, kind of like working middle class life, she would come back and beg her mom to take her back. She just didn't like to be separated. She later says, interestingly enough, even though there was always a man somewhere, her memory of childhood is like her mom, her sister, and her. Like it's just the three women. That men were very transient, of course, but like they were the unit.
She doesn't do well in school.
I was the poorest student in class and often felt embarrassed and isolated.
But she felt better knowing being cool trumps being rich.
She also had dyslexia that she learns later. She struggled with math. She wasn't great in class, and her mom didn't give a fuck.
So then her mom marries this guy, Joe, who is like super duper rich. And they move into this giant pink mansion in Beverly Hills.
His name is Joseph Harper Collins, a real estate magnate. I wonder if he's related to the Harper Collins.
Oh my God, such a good question.
But he has money for real. Like he has a staff. He has a heated pool. He's a party animal.
And that marriage only lasts like a year.
Because she wouldn't do threesomes. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, lady. For the kids? Not even a threesome for the kid.
She has her morals.
Yeah, she has her morals and she sticks to them.
She won't boink for a roll and she won't boink a third for a house.
So after she marries this millionaire, they get divorced, but they have like a very understanding and caring divorce. He puts them out in a house for 6 months. He even sends over his staff to help them take care of them for a while. He gives them like going away gifts. He gives them good money. Like
it's a pretty chill ass divorce.
She says Joe was a class act.
They're not jumping back from like not being able to afford rent from this $1 million mansion.
Yeah, he gives them kind of a runway.
But guess who sees the announcement in the paper that this millionaire is getting a divorce? Johnny Sarkazian. Cher's dad comes back into the picture for the first time in her whole life. The mom is like, do you want to meet your dad? And she's like, I guess.
She acted as if it was the most normal thing in the world for me to be introduced to the man who'd fathered and then just run away. Like asking if I wanted rye or wheat toast.
So they end up meeting. She's very suspicious of him because she's like, we are extremely similar, but I don't fucking know you, bro. And then the mom remarries him.
She does say it's like finding the missing piece to her personality. Her mom and her sister were so similar, but she like had just this calm zen way about her that no one else in her family had. And watching her father like slowly chew, slowly talk, like exist in this kind of understated way. She's like, oh, I guess I am my dad's daughter. It's hard to make sense of, but getting a husband was the go-to thing for women of that generation. It seems like mom never quite lost that feeling that there was safety in marriage. Women were second-class citizens back then. That was the way the world worked. Whatever the reason, she kept seeking protection through marriage.
I mean, this is very astute. I feel like to have this understanding that that's what your mom was doing, because we've seen so many books where these women are just like jumping from marriage to marriage, but I do think that is so true. Like it feels like you just can't start existing in the world as a woman until you've found the husband. And so they just keep cycling through husband after husband after husband, hoping that that's the thing that makes life work.
It's interesting though, she really does not have that like biological attachment to her father that I think a lot of people have. She's looking at her mom going like, you're so smart, you're so beautiful. What the hell are you thinking with this guy? He's bringing nothing to the table. You were with a millionaire, like figure it out, get someone better. I didn't dislike him, but I wasn't going to rush headlong into his arms until I knew I was firmly planted on the ground myself. I just didn't know if I could trust him. He was too smooth.
So then Johnny moves them to Fresno to be closer to his family. She meets like the rest of her extended family on her dad's side.
He's Armenian, and so they're very tight, and he becomes like the prodigal son, bringing the long-lost granddaughter. And I think for the first time, she did have this feeling of like being the chosen one, because she lived in a family where she was aware that her little sister was John's biological daughter, and she was not, even though he loved her and treated her the same. I think to like feel like out of her mom, her sister, and her, she was the most important person to this other side of her family did help her.
He loved her and treated her the same, and that he was going to murder them all equally.
Yeah.
And now in this new family, she would have gotten murdered first.
But in this family, there's a lot of food. There's a lot of closeness. Like there is a comfort and a stability that she had not known.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to any of us, however, Johnny had gone back to gambling and taking heroin, blowing any money he'd earn on craps and drugs. Oh, yeah. One of his things is he comes here and goes, look, I know you think I'm a bad dad because I didn't visit you for 10 years, but what you have to understand was I was in jail for 4 years. Which does like not even make up for half the time. And he's like, I got emergency surgery. I got hooked on heroin. I became an addict. I stole. I robbed banks. I ran drugs. I got caught. I went to jail. And now I'm clean and I'm good. Except for, of course, that didn't last long.
Of course, he wasn't good. And so then the mom finds out she's pregnant again and goes to have another illegal abortion.
At this point, he had moved them to Vegas and essentially abandoned the family and pawned everything they owned. So she's like, well, I can't be stuck with this guy with a second baby.
And then they go back to LA.
Well, he could talk me into anything, she would say. Mom tried to act as if the whole Johnny Sarkeesian experience had never happened. It seems like they got back together on and off a lot.
Yeah.
So then they move to this house that they get for cheap because they're about to do a bunch of demolition and build freeways. So they're like knocking down entire neighborhoods. So they live with her mom's friend Colleen and her daughter, and they kind of have fun. She's like, we stayed there for a really long time. That was a great 6 months. And it's around this time that she gets her period and starts getting breasts and starts getting noticed by boys.
She loses her virginity to her neighbor when he acts like an asshole to her. And then she like has revenge sex with him.
It works though. Then after she's like, that sucked, leave. He spends the rest of the summer trying to get back with her, being like, why won't you talk to me anymore? It's very that TikTok trend right now where it's like, you ghost a guy.
Oh, women in men's fields.
But she does it. It works. She also briefly goes to Catholic school because her Armenian side pays for it. And she loves it. She makes friends. She likes the nuns, even though they're mean to her. She loves wearing a uniform because for the first time, she doesn't have to be insecure about what kind of clothes she has compared to other people. She has a great time. And then she accidentally tells her mom that she got her ass beat by a nun. And her mom takes her out.
Yeah. But then her mom meets a guy named Gilbert Lapierre. And she marries him and they move to New York.
He's a finance guy from NYC. He gets them a big fancy apartment. And he takes them to dinner and he buys them nice clothes. She goes to school and she hates it. So they say, fine, you don't have to go. And then she just like makes friends who are like girls from the Upper West Side that are out of high school. So she just parties a ton. And it seems like she's always near trouble, but good at getting herself out. I mean, for a young girl in LA and New York in the 50s and 60s, unsupervised, going to parties all the time, she seems relatively unscathed.
Yeah, she also like is just not interested in drugs. She tries smoking weed a couple of times, like
in
later.
her life, yeah.
She just isn't even drawn to it.
But still, I just mean as a 14, 15-year-old girl to be at nightclubs late, like men, you don't have to be on drugs to be attacked.
Yeah.
She seems like somebody who's like, I'm 14 and I'm getting out of here. She really, I don't know, keeps herself safe somehow.
She's just there to dance. And if you try to fuck with that, she'll flip her hair at you and you'll never see the light of day again. I mean, she goes to a New Year's Eve party with her 20-year-old elevator operator, Jesse. And he's like introducing her to all of his 20-year-old friends. And she ends up going on dates with one of them. But then he acts so creepy to her. And she's like, I'm 14 and I'm getting out of here.
We like lost this, but I feel like it's important. Right before she had met Gilbert, she had dated this guy, Gabe, her mother. And Gabe kind of hit on Cher by taking her out for a ride on a motorcycle and then calls the mom and says, sorry, I'm in love with Cher. She gets mad at Cher, the mother. She says, what did you do? And she goes, what do you mean, what did I do? We went for a Sunday. Mom, we drove around, but mom was so upset. She was crazy about Gabe and she was heartbroken. It really hurt me that she didn't believe me and then she kicked me out of the house. I had no choice but to stay with my friend Della until she'd calmed down. There's always that story of, why did you steal my boyfriend, slut? Said mother to daughter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now they're in New York. There's a tension. Her mother is like not happy in New York. She's not really in love with Gilbert. She thought she would like the lifestyle and the money and the parties and the fun, but it seems like she's away from her family. Also, I mean, something that I think is left out in all of these unhappy relationships is that the traumas that her mother had survived that we only know through Cher's perspective. Like we don't even know from Georgia herself, like what she had lived through.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anybody in the world who could have come and given her a nice, stable life and she could have just been happy. Like she is somebody who had like a lot going on in her life. And I'm sure she was like a deeply traumatized person. And I think that trauma really percolates instability because you have time to sit and feel. So I think in this like lifestyle where they're in New York City, suddenly things get very tense and she's very unhappy. She falls into a deep depression. She's really lashing out at both Gilbert and Cher. Things are getting weird between her and Cher. Cher can't figure it out. At one point, she like slaps Cher in the face and the ruby ring she wears like cuts her open. And everybody's kind of shocked.
That moment was proof of how much she was struggling, and I think mom knew it.
So Gilbert is so in love with this beautiful wife. He goes, that's fine. I'll take you back to LA. So he transfers to LA. And she had said like, I hate New York. I hate the cold. I miss my family and my friends. So he goes, great. And they move back to LA. And guess what?
Still not happy. I think this line is really interesting. What he didn't realize is that my mother believed that if a man wasn't as wealthy as she was beautiful, then he didn't deserve her.
I mean, I also do that's maybe what she's saying, but it seems like he really was treating him well.
No, I mean, I think that is like Cher's assessment of it, which I think is like a very interesting assessment of her mom's difficulties in relationships because of like immense trauma. Cher's happy to be back in LA, but also kind of misses that in New York you can just walk around, and in LA you need a driver's license.
And don't we agree with her?
Then she gets painted.
At 15, I was the subject of a few pieces of art myself, thanks to an artist named Tony Mafia. Tony Mafia. Is that his real name?
I don't know.
That was the first time I thought that I was anything at all, especially when my mom told me that I should try modeling and sent me to a photographer for some portfolio shoots. I mean, obviously she trusts her mom. Her mom does not seem like the kind of person to lie to you and say that you're beautiful when you're not. So she's like, well, my mom thinks I'm pretty. That's pretty good.
Maybe I am. And then she's kind of just out. She promises that she's going to finish high school, but she's not like a party animal, but she's going out. That's when she meets Warren Beatty. They end up going out and staying out till like 4 a.m. Her mom grounds her. And then when Warren calls to be like, hey, can I take her out again? She's like, wait, you're out with Warren Beatty? Well, then you can go out.
Warren Bates.
Yeah.
From the Bates Hotel Group.
I call him WB from the WB.
He was the original Chuck Bass, and that he was the inheritor of the Bates Hotel.
He was the original doodle. That's all, folks. Anyway, so he was recently named New Star of the Year, and he's just a big deal. And her mom's like, oh, well, if that's who you're out with, then you can stay out, babe.
I'd agreed to go to acting class. Mom enrolled me in a twice-weekly 3-month drama workshop run by the actor-turned-coach Jeff Corey. She goes and he's like really hard on her. And she's like, why are you so mean to me? And he goes, because kid, you're the only one with any fucking talent around here. And I like you the best. And she's like, really? So now she's actually really loving acting. And she's like, I think I'm going to want to become an actress. She drops out of school.
Yeah, she's just kind of done with it. And then Gilbert, her stepdad, gets her and Josita, her friend / housekeeper, an apartment.
He's like, I'll help you pay for this apartment, but you have to go get jobs, both you and Josita. And I'm kind of like, wasn't Josita's job being your housekeeper?
Yeah.
I was really confused what happened there. She was some girl from Germany. Anyway, so she like stops going to school. I don't know, she gets like silly little jobs as a cashier, but because of her dyslexia, she's so bad at it. So she's always trying to figure out what to do. I think at one point she just starts throwing candy professionally. She works at C's Candy. I felt like a rudderless ship bumping against one rock and then another before being knocked back by yet another wave. Geez, Cher, what the hell is to become of you?
One night at dinner, she meets this guy named Sonny Bono, Salvatore Philip Bono.
Sonny definitely caught my attention. I was always interested in fascinating people because those were the kind of people I grew up around. He was the 60s version of my mom's friends. It wasn't love at first sight. I just thought this guy was special. So actually, he's brought over to her table because they're about to go on a double date where Sonny's being matched up with her friend, Melissa. However, Melissa's type
is gals.
So it doesn't go over so great.
So then Josita takes off with her boyfriend, and Cher can't afford the apartment by herself. So she's just getting kind of forced out. But as she's moving out, guess who she sees moving in nearby? That guy, Sonny.
And she tells him the problem. And he goes, well, if you want to like cook and clean my house, I'll just let you live with me. And don't worry about it. I've got 2 twin beds. No funny business. I'm hot off a divorce with 2 kids.
Which I think it was just 1 kid.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm hot off a divorce with 1 kid that we'll never hear about again. Either way, it could be 10. We don't know.
It's some amount
of kids. They are
kids.
not important in this story. And how lucky, it turns out she sucks at cooking and cleaning, but she takes him up on it and soon they become friends.
So he thinks she's 18, she's 16, and he is 27.
He says with a grin, honestly, I don't find you particularly attractive. I was both insulted and relieved, and that's how I became the potty mouth sidekick to a man 11 years older than me who was in the middle of a divorce. I thought Sonny was the coolest person I'd ever met. So she's living there. They're kind of having fun.
She is falling in love with him, and he just doesn't look at her that way. Although the feeling wasn't mutual, Sonny dug my weird sense of humor and was happy to do the things I liked because he was still a big kid inside.
Before too long, I began to hero worship my roommate.
So he also just like doesn't go dancing anymore.
Even though they had met dancing. She kind of taken up interest in him because he was shimmying on the floor.
Yeah, and then
like
he doesn't want her to go dancing anymore either. And she's like, now Now that I think about it, there were signs he was going to become controlling.
He realized that I was a better dancer and that made him feel uncomfortable, but he also didn't want me going dancing on my own either. I guess that was a little possessive, but the idea thrilled me because it meant he cared. Later, she would find out that possessive and caring are not the same. Ladies, clock it.
Keep that in mind for next time. Anyway, so then Sonny is working at Gold Star Records and like working in a way where he's just kind of helping out there and not really being paid, but he keeps on saying the education that I'm getting from, what is it, Philip Spector?
Yeah.
Is like more valuable than anything.
And she said he did do a good job at like taking anything he was offered, checking out the angles, and then leveraging it. So she did have faith in him. I didn't care about any of that as I was too busy soaking up the atmosphere of my first ever recording studio. She is able to tag along once he situates himself in the company. And that's just how she spends her days, is hanging out in the background, just sitting there, I guess. I don't know. I guess she's 16. What better things did she have to do?
Yeah, she's 16. She dropped out of school. She wasn't really good at working in the candy store. So then her mom finds out that she's living with an adult man and flips the fuck out, but somehow she manages to get back there.
Yeah, so she manages to get back, and in the time that she was gone, Sonny was beginning to realize that I was the person he was close to. You know, it's funny, I miss you when you're not here, he told me, and my heart did a little dance because I could tell he really meant it. So she just like leaves. She realizes that what is her mom going to do? Physically drag her back? So she leaves, but unfortunately, after she goes back to Sonny, all of my drama was forgotten when mom discovered that Gilbert had made secret arrangements to leave her. The most unkind cut of all was that he ran off with Beverly, one of her closest friends. My mother fell apart and was inconsolable. She was so furious with Gilbert for leaving that she could barely function.
Well, that's sad.
Without a husband to support us, she would eventually have to go back to work. Although she looked great, auditioning for parts wasn't as easy as it had been a decade earlier. And if we remember, it wasn't going so well a decade earlier. This abandonment, as her 40th birthday loomed, almost pushed her to the brink. All I wanted to do was be with Sonny, but I had no choice but to go back home and act as a buffer. Nursing our mother through her depression was a lot to handle at 17, although this wasn't my first experience taking care of her.
Then she goes to the movies with Sonny and he kisses her and she's just over the moon.
Laughing at my excitement, Sonny took me in his arms and kissed me, catching me completely off guard. I guess I'd finally grown on him. When I returned his kiss, we both stepped over a line. From that point on, there was no turning back.
So at this point, Sonny heard her singing while she was cleaning the house and was like, wait, you have an amazing voice. Did you know? And she was like, yeah, I kind of did. And then he wants her to sing for Philip Spector. And Philip is like, I don't know what the fuck we would do with this voice.
So she had already been told in high school,
Like her voice was too low to sing with the girls and too high to sing with the boys.
I think it's like a soto alto. And so she was like, well, I'm a freak who has no place in this world. And I was like, exactly.
Yeah.
JK.
Anyway, so then they're at the studio one day. She's just hanging out while Sonny is working basically for free. And Darlene Love didn't show up for the studio session. And they're like, I don't know, we just need to get some fucking voices on here.
Background voices.
So Philip is like, get on the mic.
Cher's terrified. Of course, she's like got no training. She's got stage fright. And every time she opens her mouth, they're like, could you step back a bit? You're just too loud. And everyone's laughing. They're like, you're going to put her in the hallway if she steps back any further. But they finally nail it. And there it goes. Their voices sound great. And from then on, she's working all summer doing background vocals every single day. But when I say working, that would imply she's just getting paid. What she was actually doing was, quote unquote, learning.
Yeah, she at one point said to Sonny, like, shouldn't we get money? And Sonny was like, how fucking dare you tell Philip you want money?
By the summer of 1963, Sonny had become everything to me, the all-seeing eye. I accepted that he hated my being involved in anything he wasn't a part of. But when he told me to give up the softball I enjoyed playing with my mom and our friends, I was devastated.
Her life very quickly becomes just about Sonny.
Yeah, he gets her to quit acting. Even Jeff Corey goes, well, you would have been a great actress if you had just committed to it. If you ever want to come back, like, let me know. Her mom is like, you're giving everything up to go do free work. Like, you should at least be getting paid. So everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? And Sonny is like, no, cut him off. Anybody who questions me, cut them off. Of course, he's not saying it like that, and she is doing it.
Yeah.
So after her mom like insists that she should be getting paid for the work, finally Sonny goes up to Phil and is like, listen, buddy, she needs to get paid or her mom will be pissed. So she gets paid $25 for the week one time and never pays her again. And even her mom is like, you should be getting more, but that's enough to shut her up.
So then they finish working on this Christmas album with Phil. At one point, Sonny is physically violent with her and she like snaps at him.
Let me tell you something. If you ever touch me like this again, I will leave your ass and it'll be the last time you ever see me. I wasn't kidding and he could see that I meant it. But they are like building this small life together. She's fully dependent on him, but he does make an amount of money from the studio. And they're living in these tiny, cute one-bedroom houses and they're having so much fun, like sprucing up old furniture. And something she takes a lot of pride in is how frugal she is and how little she asks of him, which is Obviously, like, not a bad quality, but I do think never put yourself in the position, ladies, where you're like proud of how little you ask of your own partner.
Yeah. And I do think the sad thing is like with the life that she was raised witnessing, for her to say like, don't ever do that again. And then for him to not do that again, like that is enough for that to be like a good man.
I think he had been part of this like Hollywood milieu. So he was used to ladies like being like, wine and dine me. And he did like that she was very down to earth.
Especially because she was still a teenager who had never experienced wining and dining and didn't know what to ask for.
As she goes on to be successful, it was very easy to box her out of her own financial success.
Yeah. Support for Celebrity Memoir Book Club comes from Expedia. And if you are looking for somewhere to travel to this year, you can check out Unpack 25, a report from a Hotels.com, Expedia, and Vrbo with all of the best travel destinations for 2025. We are not the greatest travel reporters. We went to Australia and all we can talk about is going to that one beach that is an extremely famous beach. However, with Unpack 25, you can find all new exciting destinations to explore. I personally am kind of excited about Jomo Travel. I'd never heard of it before, but it's where you really explore the joy of missing out. You get away, you find a cute little cabin somewhere off the beaten path, and you just kind of relax in the woods or by the beach or somewhere very quiet where you can think thoughts.
Ugh, I love that. My dream is a Zen A-frame in the Catskills. I'm like, any season, give me a wintry wonderland where I can get bundled by a fire. Give me walking through the freshly popped flowers in the spring. Give me a summer getaway where I'm not like scorching in the heat in New York City. A little house in the Catskills is kind of my dream destination at any point, and it's perfect for little Buggy, my goddaughter, or for my husband.
You had to pick one or the other.
Okay. I'll pick Bug.
I'll tell her you said that. She'll be so happy. Find your somewhere to look forward to. And, you know, don't forget to extend an invitation to Bug at expedia.com/unpack25. So then at one point, this story I think is just so funny. It's not important, but Philip was flying back to New York from LAX and he gets kicked off of his plane because he took too many drugs. And then he was just like passed out at the terminal and Cher had to like go help him get on a new flight. Apparently he was so scared of flying that he had taken a fuck ton of drugs. And then he freaked out when he was on the plane and started going, "You all look like losers. I can't fly with fucking losers. The plane isn't going to make it." That's a crazy thing to say.
And then JFK gets shot. That's really tough on them.
Well, the album bombs. This was like Glitter, but a Christmas album. So JFK gets shot. And so then the album doesn't do well because people are like not feeling Christmas cheer.
Can I say, I never in my mind put together that that was around Christmas because I always picture him getting shot
on a bright, sunny, warm day.
Yeah, but that's just Texas nonsense.
Yeah.
It could have only been a week or so later that I found out I was pregnant, which came as a huge shock as we hadn't been trying at all. However, she ends up losing the baby and she has a few more miscarriages. And that's when she finds out that she actually has a difficult time staying pregnant. Sonny was right there for me. We cried for hours together at our loss. When it was over, Sonny took me home to rest, where I went quiet and withdrew into myself for a while. Within a week, though, we were right back at Gold Star to pick up where we'd left off. So then they also decide to get married. And they do this thing where they just like get rings that say Sonny and Cher and exchange them. And they do not actually legally get married for many years.
Yeah, they also, I think for a while couldn't because his divorce had finally been finalized. And even though this part is really long, I think this was all happening over like 8 months.
Yeah.
So he couldn't legally get married again, I guess, in California at this time until you'd been divorced for 1 year. So I think they were still within that window. So they start putting out some music together. Philip doesn't like it.
Sonny's dreams for me were still being stalled by Philip, who insisted that my voice wasn't commercial enough and had the register of Paul McCartney. Sonny knew he had to try to find the perfect song and create the right image to make a hit. So then they launched themselves as Caesar and Cleo. They have this idea to do a B-side. It's called Salvatore Bono and Cher LaPierre, also known as Caesar and Cleo. And the idea is if it...
It sounds like I named it.
But like that was part of it. They were like, if you put it on a B-side and it has a really terrible name, then nobody will think you're competing with the A-side. So they'll happily put you on the disc or on the record. And that's how you like sneak in a hit. Unfortunately, they sneaked in a bomb. It did not go good. Their next single, Love is Strange, did not go good. They also had this great idea to do a song called Ringo, I Love You, which was supposed to be written in the style of like a fan talking to the Beatles because Beatlemania was huge. And what Sonny really learned from Philip was listen to what's popular and copy it. He was like not a true artist in any way, this Sonny Bono. He was fully like, I will never make anything great. The best I can do is like
find someone talented and find something talented and mash them together.
But the problem was because Cher's voice was so deep, people thought it was like a man singing about how much they loved Ringo. And in a time when homosexuality was quite literally illegal, it did not do well on the air.
Yeah.
The failure of both convinced Philip that he was right about me. Mine was only ever going to be a voice in the background. Sonny stopped hassling him to give me another chance, and I stopped singing around the house. Devastated, I was convinced that my career was over before it had even begun.
So she also notes that around this time, they're going to a lot of parties, they're meeting a lot of people, they meet the Rolling Stones and become friends with them. They become really good friends with Brian Wilson and like the Beach Boys. And she says, I was increasingly hesitant to open my mouth in the company of men if Sonny was around. I'd learned to tell from a single glance when he disapproved. So she's really like retreating into herself.
At the same time, though, more crucially for their career, they met Charlie Green and Brian Stone, who were balls to the walls. They were like these ruthless publicists who completely invented themselves and moved to LA with like nothing but a buck and a dream and just lied, finagled, pushed, prodded, and they became the promoters for Sonny and Cher. And at this time, Cher is really getting kind of into her own personal style and wearing interesting clothes and trying out bell bottoms, which were like mind-blowing at the time. And she's told by Charlie and Brian, they don't get you here. Everyone keeps saying nobody gets you in America. England is so far ahead. What you're doing is too cutting edge. You got to go to England and then be resold back to America because America thinks everything is in England is cool and England is a few years ahead.
Sonny also starts writing songs for just Cher, thinking maybe not doing duets and just having her sing will go better. But he still puts his name on it. So they're still Sonny and Cher, but it's just her singing. So they go to England.
On the back of this new little song that has gotten some buzz called I Got You Babe. They released Babe as a single and Sonny's friend Sam Riddle promoted it heavily. It was the summer of 65 and our lives were about to change forever.
They also had this thing where they would wear these costumes for stage and they dressed really interestingly in real life. And then one day they lose their suitcases. So they have to go on stage for a performance in Northern California in their like weird pants and funky jewelry instead of their costumes. And people like love their actual outfits as costumes.
Yeah, so they kind of take this all and they end up going to London and they show up and they're dressed so crazy that the Hilton won't let them in. They're basically like, no, we're booked. You can't stay here. And by the time they leave the hotel, the paparazzi's already outside and it becomes like headline breaking news that this like musical couple from America is kicked out of the London Hilton because they're dressed like crazy people. And it makes them a fucking sensation.
They come back from England 2 weeks later as like global celebrities. Some of my happiest days ever with Sonny were on that first trip to London. We never stopped laughing. We shopped, we went to clubs, we met the most incredible people and found ourselves at the center of attention everywhere we went. It's how I imagined fame, only better.
A week of media appearances was arranged for us in New York and our flights were booked. Hilariously, when the British producers found out that they couldn't get us on Ready, Set, Ready, Go for the second time, they came up with the idea of having the Rolling Stones and the singer Kathy McGowan do a spoof of us. I mean, that's how big they were. So they get to JFK and they arrive to like thousands of screaming teenagers. Like, I mean, truly, they go to London and their lives change.
I guess you could go viral before the internet.
Yeah. And I think if anything, it was almost easier back then because if you got on one channel, you were on 1/6 of all the media.
Yeah.
Like at one point in time, you could capture 18% of the TV eyeballs.
Wow.
Everything's happening fast. She puts out a solo album. That hits the charts. Everything's hitting the charts. It's like, go, 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 go.
They go on the Ed Sullivan show and they do Baby Don't Go and All I Really Want to Do, which she realizes was Sonny showcasing like his best songwriter abilities. And she's like, dude, he's so fucking dumb.
Nevertheless, they get the stamp of approval from Ed, which is make or break. Despite having everything we wanted, Sonny and I never seemed to enjoy the fruits of our labors in the same way that our peers did. We could only do what he wanted to do. We didn't go out to dinner or to movies anymore, and he didn't want to see my old friends or go anywhere without him except shopping. Nor did we go on vacation unless it was a day or two tagged on the end of a gig. If I complained, he'd look at me like a disapproving father and tell me this is our timeshare, which I understood. We'd both been poor before, and Sonny knew better than I did that fame can be fleeting. I just never expected the pace to be so relentless.
I still didn't realize slowly I was having to give up a lot of myself. He wouldn't even let me listen to music. Meanwhile, Sonny was giving up nothing.
Yeah, she wasn't allowed to leave the house ever without him except for to shop. She wasn't allowed to listen to music. She wasn't allowed to wear perfume. She was really losing herself.
And the problem is she never got to really even become herself because at this point she's like 19 years old.
Yeah. At the start of our time together, he asked me a lot of questions, shared a lot about himself, and seemed to relish getting to know me as a person, but that tapered off. The changes in how he treated me came very slowly, so I didn't even notice. It was very Machiavellian. an author Sonny loved. I love the idea of studying the prince in order to like figure out how to treat your wife. Their fame is just skyrocketing. They get to do a party with Jackie O, and she's like, we love you. She gets to be on the cover of Vogue, and Diana Vreeland's like, you're really beautiful. Did you even know that? And she's like, I didn't. She is like finding the backlash of fame because Sonny is the dominant one in the group. He's always doing interviews. And one time she accidentally pipes up and they really take everything she said and twist it out of context. And she has a lot of backlash. And he goes, no more interviews for you.
And she's like, good.
It was meant to be a threat, but it felt more like a promise. And I thought, thank God.
She also has this situation where as they're getting more famous and they're getting swarmed by fans and it's just like extremely scary sometimes, there's this huge rush of people and a security guard thinks that she is someone dressed up as Cher and not actual Cher and like chokes her out backstage.
Yeah, she's like getting scared of the audiences. She already has stage fright. She's nervous and Sonny is acting crazy. Keeping us relevant in the public eye required a great deal more time and energy after that. And the more Sonny took on, the moodier he became. Looking back, I think some of his mood swings at this time could have been because he was starting to abuse prescription meds. He also makes like a really bad idea. He does this huge PSA against
marijuana,
which people are like, oh, you're like narc loser bitches. And it really like turns their audience against them. I mean, their audience thinks of them as these like cool dressed people from England, kind of by way of London. And so to come out and be like, we hate you if you smoke weed was really a mistake. He, of course, is trying to come back from this huge loss. Like they had this huge hit. They became so famous and it's starting to seem like maybe it's fizzling out. So he's like, what we have to do next is our own movie, like the Beatles film.
So he writes this movie called Good Times starring Cher.
She says it's funny.
Yeah.
People like it, but it doesn't do well. And then he's like, I'll do another movie. And you guys can see where it's going. It seems like he's really overstretching their finances. He's trying to get money. He's like floundering.
Their agent is like, things are looking bad for you.
They get dropped by WME. Their WME agent is like, I'll come on as a manager, as a friend. But like, I don't know, easy come, easy go.
So then she ends up losing another pregnancy. At this point, she's 21 years old and afraid she'll never be able to have a child. And then Sonny starts writing another movie called Chastity. The movie ends up going, honestly, really bad because he's petrified that Cher has too much chemistry with her co-star, so he cuts all the romance out of it. But it was supposed to be a rom-com.
But he also doesn't let them film together.
And so then she's like, well, this movie actually makes no sense now. However, he also does other things that are nice, like buy her dream house.
Yeah, but then he immediately gets caught cheating with his assistant in that dream house. So I gotta pack some clothes in a bag and went to mom's. Whenever I'm in a tight spot, then and now, I always get the feeling that I want to talk to my mom. Unfortunately, telling her mom about Sonny's dalliances, of course, turns the mom against him, which in turn breaks up Cher and her mom. They end up not speaking for a year.
Yeah.
Can I also say something about him buying her dream house?
Yeah.
With what money?
Well, with no money.
Like the money that she made?
The money that no one made. They were actually in debt.
Yeah, but I'm still saying like this idea that it's like, oh, and he bought her dream house with like the money that they made off of her back.
Yeah. I'm just saying she cries from happiness at one point and then cries from sadness a lot of points.
Yeah.
If she thinks he was nice once, I'll let her have it. At one point, they're coming home from a movie and she loves it. And he's like, do you know why you liked it? And she's like, why? And he goes, because you're sexually frustrated because you don't fuck me. And then he gets really mean and is like, let me out of the car. And so she lets him out of the car on the side of the road. And then he comes home and is like, you abandoned me.
She goes, I later realized that he was just starting fights like that so he could go on dates. She had no idea their entire marriage that he was cheating on her constantly and that everybody knew.
Yeah. She tries to have one hobby, which is tennis. And then at tennis lessons, she like sees a man when she's leaving and he's coming in for a party. And someone reported back to Sonny that she talked to a man and then he never lets her go to tennis again.
He incinerated all of her tennis stuff.
Sonny's possessiveness ruined everything and I was so mad at him for that. So the movie is awful, but she does get pregnant.
She has to go on bed rest to make sure she doesn't lose the pregnancy. And they have their little baby who I know transitioned in the 90s.
So in this book, Chastity is referred to as Chastity with she, her pronouns. And Cher includes a note at the beginning saying that this was with Chaz's awareness and permission.
Yeah.
And in the second book, when Chaz does transition,
they update the pronouns.
Yeah, it'll be Chaz.
So we're just going to go with the book and assume that Cher has probably a closer understanding of what Chaz is okay with and wants.
Yeah.
Than I do.
Yeah.
So she has the baby. She's so happy. She's so in love. Her mom comes over to meet the new grandchild, and the first thing out of her mouth after months of silence and almost bleeding to death was, "This baby is insecure." That is the funniest thing I've ever heard said about a baby. Because you imagine if your mom didn't talk to you for a year, came over, looks at your new baby and goes, "Insecure."
Wait, we need to talk about the bleeding to death.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so her first night home with the baby, she has a hemorrhage and collapses on the bathroom floor, and Sonny is just not there. Like, to this day, she doesn't know where he went that night.
Okay, I know.
I mean, I know, but you can't say it.
Oh, we have to like respect the sanctity of Sonny's cheating?
No, I'm just not the sanctity of that. The sanctity of Cher. I'm too sad that the first night home with like a postpartum wife and a fresh baby, he like had to go out and get fucked and almost let her die on the bathroom floor.
I don't know who you're protecting. She's the one who almost died. I think
I'm
she lived it.
protecting me. I'm too sad.
So after that, they get a German nurse who he had hired to take care of Chaz and was like strict with Cher and wouldn't let Cher take care of the baby at all, to the point where Cher would wake up early and like steal the baby from the crib and then lock herself in the room so that she could hang out with the baby. How insane.
Sonny is crazy.
The German woman would follow, clomping down the hall after me. She'd call to me outside the bedroom, "Miss Bono, please open the door." I couldn't wait to get rid of her once I got home from the shoot. So she goes home. It's the cover of Vogue, whatever. And then when she lands, she finds out that they owe the IRS $275,000 and they don't have any money. They had also like bought this house, and it turns out they hadn't paid for the house and the market had dipped, so they couldn't even sell the house because they'd be selling the house at the lot. Like, they have no money, and she doesn't understand because she'd been working literally nonstop to the point of exhaustion constantly.
So she thought that Sonny was like good with money, or not even good with money, but understood money. And it turns out he didn't really know about taxes. And things are like bad for them. Things overall, like they're not selling anymore because they're like weird anti-drug narcs. And then he goes, "Just give me 2 years and everything will be better than ever."
To start the next phase of our career, we all went to London to appear on a British television show called This Is Tom Jones.
Then they go on tour again and things are like not good. Chastity, the movie, comes out and it sucks because it's like a rom-com where the leads aren't in any of the same scenes and it makes no sense.
They're in these like shitty hotels. The plumbing in our room didn't work properly and there was mildew on paper-thin walls. We unpacked and Sonny asked for a hot plate and started cooking pasta sauce in our room.
So they're doing these like shitty supper clubs. They used to be selling out thousands of seat theaters and now they can barely get 100 people into a room. They did one show to 4 people, which been there, bitch.
I said, "Please, I really don't want to do it. Isn't this enough torture?" Everything was hard at the time. They were finally at this midnight show in Ontario where everybody was drunk. So she just turns her back to them and starts making the band laugh and making Sonny laugh. And then the audience starts laughing along with them. We started moving towards this new kind of act and got braver with what we said on stage, but it was always hit or miss. We'd say something one night and the audience would roar. Then we'd say it another night and they'd be silent. It was starting to work, but it wasn't working enough.
At one point, she told Sonny that she was unhappy and then he screamed at her,
"You're so ungrateful. Do you want me to divorce you?" I was stunned. That's the first thing in my mind was, I'm never going to tell you how I feel again.
But their show does keep getting better and better, and the word spreads that they're doing this like fun little thing where they joke around and they're quirky and they're cute, and then they sing their songs.
They get invited to do the Merv Griffin show, and then the new young hotshot head of programming, Fred Silverman from CBS, comes and watches them, and they decide to give them a miniseries.
First, they do a TV special, the Sonny and Cher Nitty Gritty Hour, and then they get a miniseries, 6 episodes of television. And this is like right after her 24th birthday.
I stood there taking it all in, thinking, this is what I'm supposed to do. Ever since I sat open mouth at Grauman's Chinese Theater as a 5-year-old watching Dumbo, I'd wanted to be up on the screen of my own show. 20 years after Dumbo, it was finally happening.
So they do this Sonny and Cher comedy hour, and this first 6 episodes are like chaotic, but good.
They're a bit scripted though, so they decide for like the actual show to go a little bit more improv-y.
After the 6 episodes, they get picked up for a proper season and they're able to really find their footing, especially now that they're not like 6 summer filler episodes. They're on proper prime time. Now they can get like amazing guests.
And it's going amazing even for them. As we figured out what worked, we were able to play off each other and Sonny began to feel more free experimenting and going off script. It was like the show had a life of its own and eventually we could just be. It was something entirely new, which is always difficult, but once it took its shape, it was magic. I don't remember a single show when we were angry with each other. We could be having a bad day, but the moment we got to work, we were Sonny and Cher. What you saw was really what was true. We had so much fun and we were equal. Performing in that show was a perfect playground. We both understood what it was to be 2 kids playing. If Sonny came through the door right now, we'd be Sonny and Cher. That's all we were meant to be, and that's how we were. And this is true throughout the rest of their life. Spoiler alert, they get divorced and keep doing the show. But she's like, we were never faking it. We just like in that arena, in that like magical box, when we were joking in that context, we just like got each other and we did have fun. And like, it was this weird dissociation from whatever was going on. And we like loved it. It was us at our best.
So they're doing this show and then they also schedule another concert tour and they're working a psychotic amount. They would shoot sometimes a couple episodes of their show in 1 week so that then they could do a 9-date mini tour. And they were just constantly working because Sonny was so scared of going broke again.
We have to make the most of this second chance, Cher, he insisted, stopping just short of repeating what was becoming his mantra, this is our time. And she, I guess, felt like, well, he said give me 2 years and here they are 2 years to the day later, back on top. So who is she to fight him?
She also finds out that she's proper famous now. She like can't go in public without getting spotted. And her friends are like, yeah, dude, you're on TV.
However, the more successful they get, the more he starts removing himself from her. He kind of sees himself as the mastermind behind the empire of Cher and Sonny and less like the Sonny of Cher and Sonny, whereas she's just Cher of Cher and Sonny.
Yeah, exactly.
Sonny and Cher.
So they never fought at work, but they were not getting along.
Something interesting, though, about their work is she says because they were married, they got away with a lot. That later when she was alone, she would see how much more she would be censored for the exact same joke, the exact same outfit. But because she was married to the man next to her, they were allowed to push the boundaries of what she could wear.
Yeah, they could say innuendos.
Yeah.
So then they buy an even bigger house and they call it the big house.
It's her dream.
But she could never really like have a big party there. She's like, oh, it'll be the most amazing place. We can have all these barbecues and whatever. But Sonny doesn't let her hang out with anyone. And so she doesn't really even have friends anymore.
At one point, Brian Wilson's wife invites her to a Tupperware party and she's still not allowed to go. And he's like, well, why would you go? There's no reason for you to go to a Tupperware party. It's dumb. It was like he thought such an event was beneath Cher.
She was so starved for friendship. And then she ends up meeting this girl who was there with one of the guys who's in the band named Paulette. And Paulette is like her best friend, I think, to this day.
/ assistant. She very much is like allowed to be her travel companion on tour. And she's always dating men in the tour. So she's just around and she's her one sanctioned friend.
Yeah. She realizes she is not in love with Sonny anymore. She still loves him and loves what they make together. But as a person, she really does not like him.
Since we'd been together since I was so young, I knew the rules and how I should behave not to cause any problems. We had been like a sister and brother, father and daughter. We'd been partners, family, and we had the same dream. That kept us together. But he didn't seem to care how I felt anymore, or even that I had emotions. He was indifferent toward me. He's too busy trying to make an empire and be a mogul. With my anxieties mounting, I never felt more stressed, but I didn't have any idea what I could do. I was starting to feel trapped.
She has a realization that sometimes the people who are screaming at her and calling her selfish are actually the ones being selfish.
She's never allowed to go on vacation. She's never allowed to go out with friends. She just has to sit there and perform. And she's like losing her fucking mind. One day she says, can we go on vacation? He goes, no. Can I go out with my friends? He says, no. That night between shows, I went out on the balcony again. And this time I thought, I don't have to jump off. I can just leave him.
So then there's a guy in the band named Bill.
He's just some like cute little Texas 20-year-old guitar player.
He's so cute. And then Paulette was like, oh, between Sonny and Cher shows tonight, we're going to go see the Righteous Brothers. And she goes, I'm going to go too.
And everyone's like, you're not allowed. We know you're not allowed. Sonny would never allow it. And of course, they're all working under Sonny's thumb. There's this entire empire of people who like, it's very Britney Spears.
Yeah. So everyone functions as an arm of Sonny, but she just gets off stage, changes really quick before Sonny can even say a word. She goes, this is where I'm going. And she just leaves. And she realizes if she just is moving, there's nothing he can do about it. When she asks, he can say no, but when she just moves, he can't say anything. So she just goes to the show. She comes back just in time to go on stage again for Sonny and Cher, the second show of the night.
And then she does something crazy.
So they can't even get into a fight because they're about to get out on stage. And then after the show, she just like leaves and goes to a party with the rest of the band. And he's like, where the fuck are you going? And everyone at the party is like, what are you doing here? At the show between shows that she had snuck off to, Bill, the cutie pie, put his hand on her leg. And she was like, what the fuck is this? And then at the party, he's like, I'm going to go get cigarettes. And she just goes with him. It reminds me of that scene in Almost Famous where Penny Lane is like, I need ice. She's like, I need a magazine. And everyone's like, you have magazines. And she was like, not the Mechanics magazine. So then they go outside. She's like, I'm not actually getting magazines. I just wanted to hang out with you. They make out. They go back to the party and then Sonny is obviously flipping the fuck out. So then she's like, okay, well, I'll go talk to him. And she just brings Bill. And Sonny is like, what the fuck is happening? And she was like, I want to have sex with Bill.
And he goes, how long do you think you'll need? Looking back, I have no idea what made me say what I did next. 2 hours. The whole conversation was insane. I went from not arguing with him to saying that. And meanwhile, Bill's in the other room by himself with no clue what's going on. And I'm sure if he's guessed for a million years, he wouldn't have thought that. So Sonny goes, okay, and leaves. She like brings Bill in. They have like a heart to heart. She doesn't have sex with him, but she just like starts crying and explaining everything. And he's like, yeah, we all feel really bad for you. Like your life obviously sucks.
I feel like until this conversation or until this night when people are like, are you allowed to do this? I don't think she knew that other people knew how controlled she was.
I don't even know if she knew how controlled she was.
Yeah.
I don't know if she knew that it was like bizarre. It's just like one of those things like you just get used to it and becomes your normal. And if nobody around you is being like, what? If you don't have any friends that are like, that sucks.
And when Bill goes, we all feel really bad for you. She was like, wait, we all? This is a conversation.
The next thing I knew, it was the middle of the night and Sonny was back. It was 5 a.m. He had treated me very coldly. Devastated, I lay there and told myself, that's the last time. You're never going to do this again. I was so fucking angry. I knew then for sure that he didn't love me anymore. A little later, I was half asleep. He came around to my side of the bed, picked up my hand and pulled my wedding ring off my finger. It took me a second to realize what he was doing, but I was too exhausted to care.
So they kind of talk about it. He starts flinging around that she'll be the one who broke up America's favorite couple. And she's like, whatever, dude. And that scares the shit out of him and his lawyer.
So they kind of like get her and they say, well, what would it take to make you come back to this show and pretend you're still together? And she says, I want a house in Malibu and $5,000. They're like, fine. She ends up like still dating Bill. She has to date him in secret because part of the deal is that nobody can know they're not officially together anymore. So she just has this like secret life with Bill. And then of course they have to go back to the studio and just keep shooting like nothing happened. I didn't care about any of that. I was free and I had a bedroom of my own. As the weeks passed, I began to lead the kind of independent life I longed for. I felt vibrant and loved dressing how I liked without permission. She like has these moments where at one point they go out to see a movie and Bill goes, what do you want to see? And she just starts crying and realizing nobody had ever asked her that before. It had never been up to her.
We were always Sonny and Cher, even when we weren't Cher and Sonny. They're still doing the show and it's going fine. Besides my weekends with Bill, I was still living in the big house with Sonny so I could be with Chaz as much as possible.
They weirdly are like pulling it together. It's one of those things where it seems like things go good for a few months and then something happens, they get pissed and it's horrible.
She says that they were becoming friends again. They had this like kind of breakthrough where they were in the kitchen. He's like, I thought about pushing you off the balcony and then like going to jail. And then I would just like get another show once I was out of jail. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. And she's like, well, you wouldn't have had to push me. I would have jumped. And then they just like laugh and laugh. And it's like, ha ha ha.
At one point, he gets her a therapist and she finds out later that the therapist had been reporting back everything she said in sessions to Sonny. I remember when I found out screaming at Sonny, how could you do this? And he didn't even have an answer. I still find that to be incredulous. Isn't that an extreme of betraying somebody's trust, having their therapist tell you everything they're saying? I was fucking furious. I felt violated, like I'd been raped. It made me feel like I had before, as if there was no way to protect myself. This is when she finds out that Sonny had been cheating on her the whole time. Her mom tells her, and she's like, everybody knew. She's like, it's crazy. I didn't have a single suspicion, even though I had caught him cheating. I never thought that there was other times too. She's like, I don't know. He seemed so busy. He didn't have any time for me. How could he have time for other women? And I was like, well,
that's one of the things he was doing when he wasn't with you. She also gets in trouble for like being petty at one point. And she's like, I'm being petty. He is controlling my entire life and like trying to destroy me.
Yeah, at one point he like loses his mind and blows up a car. She doesn't even know what she did that made him that mad. And everybody's forbidden from speaking to her on tour. Even her friend Paulette. Like nobody speaks to her and she doesn't even know what she did. On stage that night, she turns her back on him when they're singing, I've Got You, Babe. And everybody's like, that's really unprofessional. And she's like, I'm unprofessional. He blew up a car.
But back in Studio 31, they were palios again on stage.
I felt immediately at ease and grateful to be back.
The truth is, I knew Sonny better than anyone, but sometimes I didn't know him at all. And then she meets David Geffen.
So her and Bill break up because his dream was to like move back to Texas and be a husband. And she was like, yeah, I'm 25, like one of the most famous women on earth. And I just got out of a divorce. No fucking thank you.
Yeah, she's also like, I'm like only secretly divorced. I'm still like publicly in that relationship and the star of a TV show.
Yeah, so she meets David Geffen and he sounds great for her.
Yeah.
They have a great relationship.
I won't sign my name to the David Geffen cosign list yet until we've read one more memoir that mentions him. But for now, he seems like a real gem.
He was a good boyfriend to her.
Yeah. It's funny because when she meets him, she thinks that he's just like a promo guy at the label. And then it turns out he's poised to take over the label. And he's actually one of the more successful people in the entire music industry. For those of you who don't know, he went on to found Geffen Records. And I think DreamWorks SKG, I think he's the G, like the founder of DreamWorks with Spielberg, Katzenberg, Geffen.
Once Sonny realized who I was going to meet all this time, he became very uneasy because everyone in the industry knew who David Geffen was. Sonny didn't like that I was seeing someone so smart and powerful, much more powerful than himself. The strain started to show and Sonny began to change even at work.
So he is someone that Sonny should be afraid of because he knew too much.
So they're renegotiating their contract and Geffen's like, hey, what's your contract like? And she goes, oh, I don't know. I don't look. And he goes, what do you mean you don't look? And she's like, why would I look? My husband's taking care of me. And she's like, okay, well, you're getting divorced from that guy. So, and would you believe she was so fucking fucked? She ultimately sues Sonny for having her do essentially like involuntary servitude.
The signee of their contracts is Cher Enterprises. And the owner of Cher Enterprises is 95% Sonny and 5% their lawyer, Irwin. Cher is not at all an owner of Cher Enterprises. She is an employee of Cher Enterprises.
Who's been making almost no money this entire time and also is not allowed to work for anybody else without Sonny's express sign-off.
Yeah, so she is an exclusive employee, and by employee, unpaid laborer of Cher Enterprises. And so that means she has been making no money. Everything they own is in Cher Enterprises, which is, again, 0% owned by Cher. She has no house, no money, no nothing, because it's all owned by Cher Enterprises.
I was more heartbroken than angry. I couldn't even cry. What good would tears do? Instead, I was in a state of incomprehension until I finally said, you mean I don't have any money? I don't own one of those houses. What am I going to do? And thank God I had David, because without him, I would have had nothing. I wouldn't have been able to take care of myself or my family. And then he like buys her a house to live in for the time being, and then gets her a lawyer. And she goes, oh, no, I have a lawyer. It's Irwin. He goes, that's not your lawyer. That's Sonny's lawyer. You need your own. He gets her one of the top lawyers in the world.
For years, I've racked my brain for how he could have done what he did, and I still can't get over it to this day. So this ends up being the thing that really kind of breaks them apart. The reason they can't do a fourth season of the Sonny and Cher show is because she finds out that not only is he like a horrible husband, but he's like
stolen from her.
A horrible person.
And so she goes to him and goes, listen, I'm not going to sign this contract for next season unless we're 50-50, equal partners. You know, we're equal. And he goes, I'm not going to do that, Cher. I was genuinely shocked by his response. So she calls up CBS, the guy at CBS, and goes, listen, I need you to not renew this show so that I can like get a better deal. And she goes, I won't bring it anywhere else. I want to do the show again with you, but like this is the only way I can get what's mine. And she goes, luckily he trusted me. This was a new version of him looking at me with no feeling, completely cold to me as if I was just anybody. I don't want to say he became a different person, but something about when he started smoking those cigars, he could look at me like I wasn't someone who loved him all these years. I left the room.
So they don't get picked up for season 4 because this guy kind of did her a solid. It was like an extremely successful show.
They both end up doing their own separate shows next. His gets canceled immediately. And she's so nice about it. She's like, well, he was put up against like the top show and like our slot had been given away and the ratings were really bad, but he gets canceled immediately. Meanwhile, because her co-producer is David Geffen, he gets her the top musical guests in the world.
But also she's like really talented.
Yeah.
So Sonny files for divorce, and it is an extremely public and loud divorce.
He also comes for full custody of Chaz, citing that Cher is like an unfit mother, which of course is like devastating to Cher.
Yeah. And the thing he cites is that Cher took Chaz to the Playboy Mansion, which like there's a zoo there. It was for the zoo.
Cher also has this weird thing happen where because she goes to this party and she's like, I don't know, I just wanted to be able to do things by myself. So she goes to a party and somebody ends up dying there because of like, I think of fentanyl. It seems like somebody brought bad drugs and a lot of people died because of it. But because she was at the party and she gave a statement to the police, she was connected in this way that, I don't know, it's so hard to imagine because I've never heard of this before, but I'm sure at the time it really did a number on her reputation.
So almost everyone at the party got extremely sick. And one person, I think it was just heroin, but like they didn't know they were taking heroin. It was like this heroin concoction that like was just, people didn't know what they were taking because they were being offered it as just like a party drug. And so almost everyone at this party overdosed and one person overdosed and died.
And she got blamed and that was really hard for her.
Yeah.
Even though she had been the only person who was like, should we take this guy to the hospital? And they were like, you're such a loser.
Yeah, everyone keeps on calling her a narc. Anyway, so then David asks her to marry him. And she says yes, but realizes pretty quickly that actually no.
And immediately has a new crush. Oh my God, something all rich people love to do is tell you how different Aspen and Hawaii were back when they used to go.
Yeah.
She's like, I used to go to Aspen back when it was good before anyone else knew about it.
Wish I had seen it.
I guess you can't because the minute you see it, it gets ruined.
Oh my God, you know what's so crazy is she was talking about the premiere episode of The Cher Show, and they do this sketch about like being old people in the future, and the year they do is 2025.
That's also where that sound, how about a little commotion for the dress? Now how about a little commotion for the back of the dress comes from?
Yeah.
For all my TikTok heads.
Mine was for the 2025 heads.
Then she has a lot of stories just about like the party she went to, the people she met, Andy Warhol, blah, 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 blah. I thought the funniest story was they all go out to dinner, and this had been years earlier with Dolly, the painter. And I guess they thought she was like a loser because at one point in the middle of the dinner, they go, sorry, we actually have a second appointment. And they get up and they just go to a table next to them. And her group is like, thank God, he was too annoying. It's so funny to leave a date by going to but stay at the restaurant.
Anyway, then she meets Gregg Allman. She goes to a concert because Paulette was like, I really want to go to this concert. I think this guy's so great. I love the Allman Brothers. And as soon as Cher sees him on stage, it's like love at first sight. She's so captivated by him.
And Gregory's right-hand man, Cenk, that's a crazy name, came up and handed me a note, which she put in her pocket. And it turns out it said, Dear Enchanting Lady. And it was like, can we hang out? Immediately, they fall in love.
David is kind of pissed off that they just broke off their engagement and now she's dating an Allman brother quite publicly.
He called me up and told me if we're walking on the street and I'm on one side, cross over to the other. That was really hard for me here because I still loved him. But Gregory and I really started to fall in love when he came back to visit me during a break from touring. They were super in love, super attracted to each other. It turns out that like it's hard for me to get, but everybody's like, an Allman brother, the lowest of the low. And I guess I just didn't know that that was their reputation.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were like that. I didn't know they were so low.
People warned me early on that Gregory was doing drugs, but I didn't want to hear it. He didn't drink very much and he was easy to be around. And she's like, yeah, he even wore long sleeves to bed and in the shower, but that could have been anything. He said he was sweaty.
He had a really tragic life. And so she's like, he's been through a lot. Give him a break. And then one day they wake up and it's 6 a.m. and he holds her in his arms and he goes, I'm a heroin addict, cooch.
That's what he called her. So she helps him dry out. She goes through the withdrawals with him and she's like, all right,
we're good.
We're in love.
It's hard because he is just like a really bad addict. And I feel that she doesn't really understand what addiction is at all.
I think back in the day, nobody did.
Yeah. I'm not blaming her for it.
No, I know. But I'm just saying it's like, even now, I think it's hard to cut that cord with someone when you're in love. But I think even then,
she just keeps on being like, I don't understand. You were sober. So why can't you just stay sober?
Whenever he was off the drugs, he was such a kind, sweet human being. He came to my rehearsals and was adorable with Chaz, who took to him right away. Also, something hard for him, though, is like she is so fucking famous.
This part is so crazy. He's a rock star and girls would just like run up and try to kiss him, even if she's right next to him. And he'd go, I'm talking to my wife. And they acted like I wasn't even there. We weren't married yet, but he said it to let them know to respect me. I felt like screaming, I'm Cher, motherfucker. Why didn't you? Why didn't he? Like, this is so crazy. Cher is right there.
I didn't know whether my relationship with Gregory would last or not. I was living each day as it came. Then I found out I was pregnant and we decided to get married. I was no longer Cher Bono, but Cher Allman, Gregory's third wife. The next morning I woke up and he was gone. I didn't have the energy to fight for him and I didn't think he did either.
She finds out that he is filing for divorce. So then she files for divorce and they had gotten married 9 days before.
Well, what's crazy is she had heard a rumor that he had done so. So she calls him up. She's like, are you divorcing me? And he goes, no. And then sure enough, she's served.
But then he calls again and he's like, what if you just come to rehab with me? So they put the divorce on hold. She goes to rehab with him.
And she realizes things are pretty bad. So she actually gets an abortion and does not keep the baby.
So now it's season 2 of The Cher Show and David Geffen is no longer with it. So they're having a little bit more trouble. Plus the show that they'd put in the time slot over the summer had like absolutely tanked the ratings for that hour. They'd gone from a 23 to a 7. I also want to throw in this part. She mentions running into Ike and Tina Turner a few times throughout this book. And it really felt like such parallel. It's so interesting that Cher was in this horrible relationship with Sonny where he is just like using her at the same time as Ike and Tina are together. And we know from Tina Turner's book that she left Ike with nothing to start over. And at one point, Tina went into Cher's dressing room and just said, tell me how you left him, just as we left this out. But Cher had done with Lucille Ball, who had left Desi. And I think that this like chain of women who had gotten out of these like intertwined and predatory relationships is very powerful. When I think of I Love Lucy, I think of Lucy. Who the fuck is her ex-husband? I don't even know. When I think of Tina Turner, who the fuck is Ike? When I think of Cher, I'm like, I know at one point Sonny and Cher was a thing, but Cher is Cher and Sonny is anybody.
It's been really eye-opening to see that. Yeah, I was thinking about that phrase, behind every great man is a great woman, and behind every great woman is a man just sucking her dry.
Yeah.
Me and Ashley were talking about if Cher hadn't found Sonny, what would have happened? And I'm like, I think she was destined to be a star. But at the same token, I think Sonny was destined to find somebody to exploit, because I can name off the top of my head 10 husbands who were just Ike Turner, that guy John who produced A Star Is Born, who was the hairdresser that Barbara accidentally fell in love with. For a long time, I think when women couldn't really be on their own in the industry because they like couldn't have credit cards, or like were so disrespected or were constantly being assaulted, I feel like the only safe way you could proceed was to be like spoken for in this way. And there was always a man willing to sit there and like take advantage of your strength and skill and talent.
Yeah.
And drive. There was a lot of opportunities back then.
A lot of opportunities to steal from a woman. And can I say, to this day.
Yeah. Anyway, so there becomes this like, you know how it is with addiction. It's a real, he's going to get sober, he falls off. He's going to get sober, he falls off. And she says like, how am I supposed to stay with you? You keep going to rehab. And he's like, yeah, I keep going. And I think she like wants to be there for him, but she gets pregnant again. She has this baby Elijah, and very quickly she realizes they can't be together. I think they actually break up before she even gives birth.
Yeah.
Sonny, on the other hand, comes to the birth and is there taking photos and being supportive. And like, it seems like her and Sonny really find a way to make it work. And of course, what does she do during the pregnancy?
For the second season of her show, her and David are obviously broken up because she is at this point pregnant with Gregg Allman's baby, and they've been together publicly for a little bit. But the show is not going well. And so she calls Sonny and she's like, why don't you just come back and do the show with me? And he's like, what the fuck?
I think he says what the fuck, but he's like, he has nothing at this point.
Oh,
He's
I don't mean what
grateful.
the fuck, like what the fuck, no. I mean, what the fuck, like this is crazy.
Yeah. And so, of course, they like get the show off the ground before she's told anybody that she's pregnant. Even Gregory, actually.
Even Sonny.
Yeah. I almost think the father is more important than your business partner.
Okay.
And when she tells Gregg's like, you're lying. And she's like, how could I lie about? Like, what the fuck would I be lying about? But Sonny's like, God damn it. And of course she goes, you know, is it crazy and unheard of to have a divorced couple do a TV show while she's pregnant with someone else's baby? Sure. But that's us. We're kooks. And sure enough, the show is a fucking hit.
Showing my belly button had been the biggest thing that happened in the history of TV in 20 years. But for me to come back to star on a show with my ex-husband while impregnated by my new husband, who also was a heroin addict and had divorced me once already and was otherwise out of my life, nothing had happened in the history of the universe like that.
The new Sonny and Cher show would be announced in December and start airing in February 1976. I mean, it went wonderful.
So then she ends up having Elijah, her second baby.
Yeah, she does another album with Warner Brothers.
She's also very political.
Outspoken Democrat.
Outspoken in the Democratic Party. And so like every couple of years, she'll be like, Jimmy Carter was the president. It's important in her story.
It's interesting. She says about her music, I never thought, oh, my albums are so good, or I'm proud of this one. I didn't like my voice that much until years later when I worked with my singing teacher. So she like just casually does an album, doesn't care about it. She's doing this show. She's so happy. It seems like things are going really well in her life. And she's like happy just having her two babies. She's come to terms with Sonny. She's come to terms with Gregg. She's in Hawaii a lot. She has her friends.
She sees Bill again. They kind of reconcile and
have a little fling. Yeah. And then when she realizes what she really wants to do is be a serious actress, she's like, yeah, I had an Emmy, but all my friends have Oscars. But unfortunately, nobody will book her because she's been typecast as a TV girl. She's to herself. Nobody can see her talent.
She's also at this point like the highest selling touring act at the club scene.
Yeah, she's doing Vegas residencies. She builds her dream house out in the Holmby Hills. She wants an Egyptian style pyramid, and they say, okay.
Yeah, but she wants to be an actor. And so
it seems like she maybe almost runs out of money, and then it turns out that her managers had been stealing from her. So it's not a big deal. I mean, there's just so much money coming.
She figures it out. She's got her dream house. She's got her life. But then she's got to be an actor. And so Francis Coppola says,
she's talking to him and saying, why aren't you doing it? And she remembers that somebody had once given her the advice that if you want to be a serious actress, you have to move out to New York. And he says, okay, then. So what are you waiting for? Part 1.
Concluded. I love Cher. I get why Cher's a global icon.
I wish I had been raised in the time of her so that I knew the lore and then got the facts.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if this was a relationship you had been thinking, like, Imagine if this was Selena Gomez's explanation of what happened that summer between her, Justin, and Haley.
Oh,
do you know
wow.
what I mean? Like, for these two people to have been on TV as a married couple, a secretly divorced couple, and then out as a divorced couple for 14 years, if they had been like the biggest stars of your whole life, wouldn't you have died for this book? I just feel sad that I don't get to have like been wanting this information.
Yeah, I understand that and I agree.
I cannot imagine what hearing about like the divorce night must be like if you had been wondering and speculating and reading the gossip.
Ugh, chills.
How many martinis would you like with her?
5.
How fertile would you say the soil is?
5.
Okay, I'm going to say 4.
Okay. What did you feel it was lacking?
You know, I think my standard for a 5 is it has to work as a standalone memoir, even if you yourself are not a celebrity.
You know, I think I might be still. I was very fascinated by the bopping around and the moving and the shaking and the mom things. And
But no, fair enough. That's what makes this show so good. Our differing opinions.
Yeah. And should we thank our 5-star reviewing wormies?
If you want.
Support for Celebrity Memoir Book Club comes from Expedia. Get creative finding your next travel destination at expedia.com/unpack25. Unpack25 is a report from Expedia, Hotels.com, and Vrbo, where they found the most incredible travel destinations for 2025. If you are like extremely into Scandinavian design, you can go on a goods getaway where you get away to Scandinavia and find the most incredible pieces to source and bring back with you so that every single item in your home has a story.
It's a great way to embrace the spirit of travel and decorate along the way.
Explore more travel trends and find yours somewhere to look forward to at expedia.com/unpack25.